Today I want to talk about my new bow, the PSE EVO NTN model. This is the knock-on edition of their popular NXT model with the evolved cams and some of the different specifications that John Dudley made to this bow that differ from the NXT. Now, starting with the cam system, this is the evolved cam system that has the adjustable let-off with just one screw that allows you to go from 80 to 85 to 90% let-off. Currently, I have mine set at 90%. On the other side, you're able to adjust the draw length just by adjusting two different screws. Now, gone are the days where you have to use the mod or bring it into a bow shop and set it into a press to change any of that stuff. All this can be done in your garage, at home, right on the, honestly, you could do it right on the shooting lane if you really had to. Traveling further down the riser, you're going to see some differences in the groove between the EVO NTN model and the EVO NTX model. And then the shelf itself is going to be slightly larger with a little bit of a groove, which really helps when you're tuning to find your center shot. There are two burger holes, which are great. You can use both if your rest will allow it, but it gives you several different options on how you want to set up your rest and which rest you really choose to use. Mine's currently set at the burger hole that's closer to the string, but there are some rests where you'll be able to use both of those burger holes to really make sure that your rest is secured to the riser, very well and securely. On the back side, if you can see where the roller guard is, it's integrated directly into the riser. So you're not able to move this back and forth. I know some people use that as a tuning mechanism, but it's also something else that can move, especially if your application for this bow is something where you're going to be running around or maybe potentially dropping it at some point in time, like in like a train to hunt or a hunter athlete competition, such as the things that I compete in. Going further down, you're going to see that there's two holes that are tapped and drilled that allow for the use of a kickstand. Now, if you go on Nock on Archery, you're able to find that they sell these small kickstands that are basically cut-offs of an arrow with the screws. You screw them in, and you're able to set the bow directly down. Now, you don't want to necessarily set it, on concrete, but definitely softer surface. But it allows for using a kickstand of some kind for turkey hunting, setting it down at the base of a tree. So when you're hoisting it up, you're hoisting it straight up rather than dragging it up off the ground, or when you're just shooting in the back patio. The cool thing about that quickstand system is that you can leave it in while you're shooting, and then if you wanted to take it out, they're basically cut off arrows, so you just pop it right into your quiver, so you can carry it around with you on your quiver rather than having to have it, in a hip quiver or something else like that. And lastly, as far as the specifications are concerned, the yoke system is really cool. They have these tiny yokes here, like several other models have, but they also put holes in there. So those holes can actually be used if you are going to use a limb-driven system. You no longer have to tie off down to the outside limb, which kind of exposes that string a little bit. You can tuck it in nice to this yoke and use the limbs of your bow to protect that string. So where that comes in is if you're going through brush or going through tight trees, you're less likely to get it snagged. Personally, I still use the drop away, which has the shorter string, which is tied off to one of the down cables. But if you do like those limb-driven systems, this gives you a little bit more secure of an option. Or when I went to go shoot this bow, I wanted to shoot it against the flagships of several other different models, just to make sure that I was making the right decision. I shot this against Hoyt, Elite, and Bowtech, and to be honest, this had the smoothest draw for me. Now, everyone's going to pull back differently. I am no professional archer by any means. I try to do things as close to the book as possible, but for me, drawing this back compared to those other models, there was no comparison. Now, one of the biggest things that I did notice about drawing this compared to my previous model, which is the Halon 32, was that with the Halon, as I drew back, when the cams came over into that valley, there felt like this big bump as the cams rolled over. With this bow, and I'll try to do it so that you can see it, you might see those cams roll over, but you do not feel it when you're drawing it back. Which maybe not such a big deal, but say you're trying to mess with your draw length and you put a draw length in that might be a little long, or you're using a different type of release that causes your draw length to be a little longer. When you have that bump, what can a tendency that can happen is that your bow will catch forward, or you will basically punch the bow forward, and you could short draw it. You could shoot without being at full draw, or you could just kind of let go of the arrow before you really intend to, and that's never a good situation. With this, pulling straight back into that 90% let off is a beautiful aspect of this bow. The applications that I have for this bow really are for whitetail hunting and competing. I compete in hunter athlete competitions, and this year I'm also going to be competing in the NFAA Indoor Championships. And I really wanted a bow that could do all of that. So that 7-inch brace height was ideal for me because of the forgiveness of it. Having a 33-inch ATA as opposed to getting a target bow of 35, 36, or those giant target bows, I'm able to have a string angle that I'm comfortable with. I like that sharper string angle that the 32 and 33 ATA bows offer. I'm not a huge fan of that wide string angle, just because I don't like where it anchors. And it may seem silly, but I wear a hat 99% of the time, so I like to be able to draw back without having to take my hat, turn it around, pop it up, or do whatever the case may be. But I'm able to just draw back as is, anchor, and shoot. Some of the surprising features that I've grown to really love, like I had mentioned before, are that groove that's placed on the riser here. I'm not sure if that was the original intent of this bow, to have those grooves there so you put your hand in the right position, but having those there, it works for me. And again, anytime you're picking a bow, you got to pick what works for you, and this is one of those things that was kind of a surprise for me. The other part, as I mentioned before, was that adjustable let-off. I never would have thought I really needed a 90% let-off bow, but now that I have it, I'm never going back, and I really like having that in my system here. One thing to note with that 90% let off is, I've been told at least, that some states do not necessarily allow, or it's illegal to have a 90% let off on your hunting bow. How someone would possibly know that, it'd be kind of tough, but you just don't want to get yourself into a situation where you have your bow confiscated, or anything you harvest confiscated because of something silly like that. So it's always good to read the regulations in the state that you're going to be hunting. So, but overall, I really like this bow. I've had it for only a week and a half, and I've already harvested a huge buck with it. But there are some drawbacks that that I'm not crazy about. When I was testing the test model at the shop, I did notice that when the bow tech was screwing in the rest, when he took the rest off, there was some chipping in the finish. Color affecting performance, not so much, but when you're paying top dollar for a bow, you do want it to look good. So it's more of an aesthetic thing, but it's one of those things that I haven't had any chips on this model yet. But I guess I'm a little bit more cognizant of it, knowing that I saw that before. But other than that, really, there's not much else that I don't like about this bow. It is a little loud with regard to the colors, but I've grown to like those considerably. I wish that the burger holes, I wish that I could utilize the 2 burger holes with my rest. That's more of a limitation of the rest itself than the bow, because I really want to have that secure application. I have had a rest shift down. It was not this QAD, it was an Apache rest, and I couldn't figure out what it was for the longest time until I really looked over the bow and saw that the thing had shifted down. It would be nice, especially in those train to hunt competitions where I'm shooting, putting the bow down, doing some running, doing some other stuff, coming back, grabbing the bow, shooting, possibly letting it down a little heavier than I really should. I want to know that things are secure on the bow, and I really would like to be able to use both of those burger buttons. So really, those are my only 2 criticisms of the bow so far. I'm going to let the string stretch out considerably as I'm shooting. The finish will, in time, it will tell how well that finish holds up. But I mean, the bow itself, compared, when accompanied by the stuff that I have on here, like I have the Spot Hog Fast Eddy sight, I have the Crossover 1022 stabilizer, which is actually a telescoping stabilizer that allows it to go out to 22 inches if need be. With this bow, the balance is great. I decided to shoot without the quiver for weight savings on this bow, so I no longer needed a back bar on this. When I draw back, I can balance out almost immediately. So it really makes it great for situations where I have to balance the shot out very quickly to take a shot, or if I have to hold it balanced for a long period of time like I did last week, I could really do any of that with this bow. So overall, I'm honestly I'm in love with shooting this bow right now. It's incredibly forgiving for me, and it works for me. So this isn't the end all be all, but this is definitely a great selection if you're in the market for a new bow. I would definitely give this a try, but definitely shoot this against all the other models to make sure that's what fits you. So if you like what you see here, comment below, like the video, share it. Honestly, share it would be the most important, because then it shares this information with everybody else, and subscribe if you'd like. Thanks a lot.